Chapter 1096. Wind Flowers, Snow Moon. Fang Yuan wore a white robe. His black hair was flowing with the wind. He slowly descended into many northern plains within the sovereign immortal aperture. He was planning to undergo tribulation in this place again. The other areas had resources placed in them. Many northern plains only had this icy area, and most importantly, the snow monsters filled with heavens were all eliminated already. The sovereign immortal aperture had a huge space, but the calamities and tribulations only targeted Fang Yuan. Therefore, the tribulation would occur where he was located. The immortal aperture had already been placed. It was in northern plains. The tributary of the river of time in the immortal aperture linked to the river of time outside, and the rate of time inside greatly slowed down. First, he inspected his arrangements. There were large numbers of goo worms placed in the sovereign immortal aperture. Most of them were goo worms related to the killer move immortal tribulation tempering aperture. Other than that, there was Dang Hun Mountain right beside Fang Yuan. Right now, Dang Hun Mountain looked completely different from before. Fang Yuan did this to prevent others from using fixed immortal travel to enter while he was undergoing tribulation. He got rid of this possibility before it could be used. During the first tribulation, Fang Yuan did not have Pulling Mountain immortal goo or landscape as before. He could not bring Dang Hun Mountain in. But now, it was different. With Pulling Mountain, Fang Yuan could single-handedly drag Dang Hun Mountain into his immortal aperture. If he had to request for help from other Hairy Man Goo immortals, not only would he need to waste his sect contribution points, he would also need to let the Hairy Man Goo immortals into his sovereign immortal aperture, exposing his huge secret. With landscape as before, he was not afraid that Dang Hun Mountain would be destroyed in the calamity. After all, the more severely Dang Hun Mountain was damaged, the fewer the guts goo produced. After some inspections, Fang Yuan confirmed that his arrangements had no problems. Immediately, at his will, the entrance of the sovereign immortal aperture opened. Huff, huff, huff. A huge amount of heaven and earth chi entered the sovereign immortal aperture through the entrance. At once, there was a huge commotion, as if tidal waves were crashing in. This time, I brought in Dang Hun Mountain, increasing the burden on the sovereign immortal aperture. Thus, there is more heaven and earth chi than last time. Heaven and earth chi rushed in fiercely. Fang Yuan also activated the goo worms outside of his immortal aperture at the same time. He had already done this setup once before. Fang Yuan was quite familiar with it. While undergoing tribulation, Fang Yuan naturally used immortal tribulation tempering aperture. First, the killer move immortal tribulation tempering aperture could, indirectly, weaken the earthly calamity's power. Second, it could draw out reckless savages' true meaning, helping Fang Yuan with his transformation path cultivation. Unlike the first tribulation, this time, many of the mortal goo used for forming immortal tribulation tempering aperture belonged to Fang Yuan. He even modified immortal tribulation tempering aperture himself, making some slight tweaks. The modified immortal tribulation tempering aperture was one of the preparations Fang Yuan made for this tribulation. Even though his refinement path attainment level was not high, he had Grandmaster Wisdom path attainment level. His modifications were just icing on the cake. They were not crucial aspects. But as long as he continued his research, Fang Yuan was sure that he would make this killer move as suitable for himself as possible. After all, Fang Yuan could not always rely on Langya's sect. Each time he underwent tribulation, he needed to borrow so many goo worms from Langya Land Spirit. There was a huge cost in it. Fang Yuan modified immortal tribulation tempering aperture so as to break free from Langya Land Spirit's control in this aspect. At a moment later, Fang Yuan completed his arrangements and began to use his immortal essence, activating his goo worms. Green light shone, filling the entire immortal aperture, while connecting to the outside world. Gradually, a green hue appeared outside the immortal aperture, covering a huge surrounding area. Tens of thousands of green grape immortal essence beads were used, allowing Fang Yuan to activate the killer move immortal tribulation tempering aperture. The second earthly calamity descended. The world rumbled. Winds blew as clouds shifted. At first, there was only a mild wind, but soon, the intensity of the wind rose greatly. In the blink of an eye, a huge wind blew. It had the force to sweep the world and blow away all life. What tribulation is this? Fang Yuan stood on the peak of Dang Hun Mountain, awaiting vigilantly. Even though he had not recognized the earthly calamity yet, he could see that this earthly calamity was like last time. It was far beyond reason in terms of power. Intense winds blew, blowing the snow and ice on the ground up, causing the area to become obscured. The sovereign immortal aperture had few light path down marks to begin with. It was dim. With the raging winds and snow, Fang Yuan's vision became very limited. Ding ding ding, ding ding ding. What sound is that? Fang Yuan had already activated his methods to investigative, but he suddenly heard the sound of chimes from within the snow and wind. This strange scene made Fang Yuan frown slightly. Don't tell me. This is... A thought flashed in his mind at this moment. The sound of chimes became louder. A huge green flower flew out of the wind, crashing into Dang Hun Mountain. This green flower was extremely fast. It was simply faster than lightning. After crashing into Dang Hun Mountain, a huge mark was left. On Dang Hun Mountain, the mountain rocks along the way were all smashed into bits before being blown away by the wind. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Wind chimes rang again. At the next moment, 18 green flowers flew out and crashed into Dang Hun Mountain. They turned into dust, but 18 blemishes were made on Dang Hun Mountain. These are wind flowers. Fang Yuan's eyes were shining brightly. He confirmed this in his mind. Wind flowers were a type of wind essence. They were only produced in extremely intense winds. They had no roots and floated in the wind. They were large like horse carriages. They were light green in color and were extremely sharp. Ding ding ding. Fang Yuan had just recognized these flowers when the next wave of wind flowers came again. The flowers were in greater numbers now. There were 40 to 50 of them. They were attacking from all directions, crashing into Dang Hun Mountain consecutively. Dang Hun Mountain's surface was impacted, dust and smoke rose. Fragments of rocks were scattered by the wind and vanished. Fang Yuan quickly retreated, moving away from the mountain peak. He gritted his teeth, feeling slightly troubled. Last time, Heavens will created a large number of snow monsters, but I could fly and had the initiative. This time, Heavens will learned its lesson. It changed its tactics and used the wind flower tribulation on me. This was Fang Yuan's weakness. Fang Yuan's speed was lower than the wind flowers, and his defensive methods were only at mortal level. Thankfully, I moved Dang Hun Mountain here this time. Otherwise, I'd have no place to guard myself. It would be terrible. Fang Yuan felt extremely glad. Landscape as before. He used his time path immortal goo. The blemishes on Dang Hun Mountain vanished. It returned to normal. But soon, at the next second, a barrage of wind flowers attacked again, smashing layers of the mountain's surface into pieces. This cannot go on. Activating immortal tribulation tempering aperture already used more than half of my immortal essence. Even though I am safe currently, I am expending a lot of green grape immortal essence. Restoring Dang Hun Mountain is merely prolonging the inevitable. Fang Yuan squinted. Thoughts were churning rapidly in his mind that he had rich battle experience. He quickly thought of a countermeasure. Strength Path Killer Move. Myriad Self. Transformation Path Killer Move. Familiar Face. Immortal Goo Dark Limit. His body shook. He utilized his methods. As countless Fang Yuan occupied the whole of Dang Hun Mountain Point, one of them roared at the sky as all of the Fang Yuan phantoms rushed towards the winds outside of the mountain at the same time. Fang Yuan's actual body used Familiar Face and Myriad Self to conceal himself. He turned into a rock on Dang Hun Mountain. With change form Immortal Goo, Familiar Face was closer to the original version. It was easy to use, having instantaneous transformations. It was unlike before, when Fang Yuan used a large number of Mortal Goo to replace the effect of change form Immortal Goo, causing Familiar Face to need a very long time to activate. After turning into a common rock, Fang Yuan did not rest. He used Dark Limit Immortal Goo, concealing his aura. Ding ding ding. A large number of wind flowers attacked the tens of thousands of Fang Yuan phantoms. The calamity's firepower became less concentrated. Dang Hun Mountain sustained less pressure than before. In a moment, Fang Yuan's myriad self phantoms were all exterminated by the wind flowers. Fang Yuan used myriad self again, summoning countless phantoms that charged out carrying his aura. The wind flowers scattered and danced in the wind. Many phantoms were instantly destroyed. After some repetitions, heavens will sensed Fang Yuan's tactic, as the wind flowers stopped paying attention to the Fang Yuan phantoms. They targeted their attacks at Dang Hun Mountain. Fang Yuan gritted his teeth, feeling the ill intent of heaven's will. Dang Hun Mountain is my greatest sources of revenue. Heavens will want to destroy it and ruin my future prospects. Thankfully, Fang Yuan had landscape as before to restore Dang Hun Mountain. But it could only let Fang Yuan maintain the situation. He would still be in a passive state. Green grape immortal essence was rapidly expended. Triple layered sword wave, strength path, giant hand. Fang Yuan tried to counterattack, but the wind flowers were too fast. The two killer moves were ineffective. Especially strength path, giant hand. Even though it was powerful, it was too slow. It could not catch any wind flowers at all, unless the wind flowers came at it. Poison breath. Fang Yuan breathed out dark purple poisonous gas that scattered with the wind. Large numbers of wind flowers wilted upon coming into contact with the poison. Fang Yuan showed great joy on his face. Poison breath was modified from the wisdom path killer move, harboring malicious heart. It used woman's heart as the core. It had many flaws and was of comparatively low value. Fang Yuan rarely used ITTO think that it was so effective now. Under the effect of poison breath, the wind flower's offensive power lowered immensely. The winds were starting to slow down. A cold light shone on the entirety of Dang Hun Mountain. Fang Yuan raised his head and saw that in the sky, there was a crescent moon that appeared out of nowhere. Fang Yuan squinted. He muttered under his breath, "Snow moon." This crescent moon was pure white as snow. It shone down with a pale light, causing Dang Hun Mountain's temperature to fall. Soon, layers of frost began to cover the surface of Dang Hun Mountain. Fang Yuan felt like there was a weight on his heart, he thought. So this is not a wind flower tribulation, but a wind flower snow moon tribulation. The former is an earthly calamity, but the latter is a heavenly tribulation. This second earthly calamity is simply too absurdly strong. Chapter 1097. Undergoing tribulation with difficulty. Wind flower tribulation, snow moon tribulation. When alone, they were two different earthly calamities. When the wind flowers and snow moon were together, they formed a heavenly tribulation. The power was much higher, and the difficulty of passing the tribulation increases. The wind flowers were fast and hard to avoid. They were sharp and not easy to defend against. The snow moon gave off cold light that froze Gu immortals, making them slower. The two were a perfect pair. Fang Yuan was feeling heavy pressure. Actually, with his current strength, especially after the transaction with Shadow Sect, Strength Path and Sword Path became his main source of offense. Be it Strength Path, Giant Hand, or Triple Layered Sword Wave, they could allow him to unleash rank 7 Gu immortal battle strength. It was possible to pass a heavenly tribulation. What created Fang Yuan's heavy mood was not the heavenly tribulation now, but his future progression. When Gu immortals undergo tribulations, they get stronger and stronger. Fang Yuan's second earthly calamity was in theory stronger than the first, but the second earthly calamity was already at heavenly tribulation level. Such an increase was simply too much. Theoretically, if this went on, how strong would his third and fourth earthly calamities be? A rank 6 Gu immortal faces an earthly calamity every 10 years, and a heavenly tribulation every 100 years. After 300 years, after 3 heavenly tribulations, they would become rank 7. That means they would have 27 earthly calamities and 3 heavenly tribulations. And for Fang Yuan, after this second earthly calamity, he still had 25 earthly calamities and 3 heavenly tribulations. If his second earthly calamity was already at the level of a heavenly tribulation, what future would he have? If he projected this into the future, his earthly calamities would reach the level of grand tribulations. The light of the snow moon made Fang Yuan's face look pale. Even the thoughts in his mind were moving at a slower rate as a result. The snow moon gave off a cold light that not only slowed the Gu immortals' movement, but also their thoughts. Fang Yuan quickly used wisdom path methods to protect his mind. He was a wisdom path grandmaster. He could achieve this easily. This should not be. During Shadow Sect's transaction, Sixth Hair told me, even though earthly calamities get stronger each time, there is a limit to their power. As long as this is an earthly calamity, It will be within the range of an earthly calamity. Was he lying to me? He gave me false information. Fang Yuan frowned deeply. It was not impossible that they lied to him. But to Fang Yuan, thinking from the other side's perspective, they had nothing to gain from doing so, because this was something that could be easily found out. And Shadow Sect wanted to capture Fang Yuan to reverse refined sovereign immortal fetus goo. Wouldn't it be a problem if they lied to him and caused him to die in this calamity? Or can I say, there is another possibility. Brightness flashed in Fang Yuan's eyes, before turning dim. The winds were howling outside. Fang Yuan raised his head, looking at the sky. His pupils were dark like the night sky, standing on a mountain rock. His white robe and black hair fluttered in the wind. He was like a lone wolf. Triple-layered sword wave, strength path, giant hand. Suddenly, he burst out with a strong attack. Sword waves appeared out of nowhere, rushing up towards the sky, defying gravity. Strength path, giant hands tore through space, pushing apart the wind with immense force. The two charged towards the snow moon in the sky. Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Countless green wind flowers gathered towards the sword waves and giant hands like bees that were attracted to nectar. The sharp wind flowers clashed with the sword waves and giant hands. Soon, these two forces were eliminated, but there was a strange sight. Earlier, the wind flowers only targeted Danghun Mountain. They wanted to destroy this famous secluded domain of heaven and earth. They ignored Fang Yuan's sword waves and giant hands, even avoiding them on purpose. But now, these wind flowers went to attack them. It was because Fang Yuan's attack was aimed at the snow moon in the sky. It seemed like these wind flowers were trying to protect the snow moon. The snow moon's existence was indeed placing much pressure on Fang Yuan. It was not wrong that the wind flowers were protecting it, but excitement flashed across Fang Yuan's eyes. Myriad self, myriad self, myriad self. A group of phantoms roared. Large number of Fang Yuan phantoms rushed up like a tidal wave. Fang Yuan used it 3 times. In an instant, Danghun Mountain, which was originally empty, became extremely crowded. Countless Fang Yuan flew into the wind by jumping down the mountain. But unlike last time, Fang Yuan's true body also turned into a strength path. Phantom, rushing out of Danghun Mountain. Large numbers of wind flowers came at him. But there were too many strength path phantoms and too few wind flowers. Fang Yuan's strength path phantoms could not resist the wind flowers. They were rapidly sacrificed. But using them to conceal himself, with familiar face and dark limit helping him, Fang Yuan successfully got into the sky. It is time. Sword escape. Fang Yuan found the perfect time to use sword escape immortal goo. He was like a dragon out of the water. He rushed into the sky and soared above the clouds. It was an astonishing sight that he was close. Fang Yuan used triple-layered sword wave and strength path giant hand again. Heavens was caught off guard. The wind flowers were still eliminating the Fang Yuan phantoms. Fang Yuan successfully destroyed the snow moon in the sky the next moment. Large amounts of reckless savage's true meaning filled him. Fang Yuan was like a withering plant receiving water. He absorbed all of the true meaning. All of a sudden, he felt like he had transformed into a moon. He was hanging in the sky, quietly emitting moonlight as he looked down on the living beings of the world. His transformation path attainment level rose rapidly. Transformation path. It did not just include animals and plants. It also encompassed mountains, water, wind, moons, all of these natural phenomena. This true meaning of reckless savage gave Fang Yuan great gains. He laughed loudly. One could feel his joy from his laughter alone. As it turned out, the wind, flower, snow, moon tribulation was just pieced together. It was not a true heavenly tribulation. The second earthly calamity was within the scope of an earthly calamity. No matter how angry Heaven's will was and how much it wanted to eliminate Fang Yuan, there was no use. It was Heaven's will. It had to obey the law of balance of the way of heaven. Winds roared. Heaven's will raged, as if it was embarrassed from having its plan exposed openly. Countless wind flowers assaulted Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan used myriad self again. Large numbers of Fang Yuan phantoms diverted Heaven's will's offense. The wind flowers killed Fang Yuan phantoms. It was a true slaughter, but there was little effect. Fang Yuan's true body was hidden among the phantoms, eventually landing on Danghun Mountain again. With Dang Hun Mountain, he had a place to defend himself. Fang Yuan could catch a breather. Deactivating familiar face, Fang Yuan's body shook. There was a huge wound on his back. Blood was dripping. His bones could be seen. But because of change form immortal goo, his wound was concealed. He managed to deceive heaven's will. My defense is too weak. Fang Yuan sighed, starting to heal himself. He did not use man as before. Man as before was an immortal goo that used immortal essence, and it could only return him to his state a moment ago. Fang Yuan was hurt by a windflower in the sky when he was flying at that time. He could not use man as before. If the immortal goo aura was leaked, he would be exposing himself. Thankfully, my Dao marks do not conflict. Even mortal methods work well on me. Fang Yuan felt his immense advantage in this aspect. Normally speaking, goo immortals were hard to heal. Because they had Dao marks, they would interfere and reduce the effectiveness of mortal healing methods. When using healing immortal killer moves, one also had to consider if the Dao marks conflicted. Fang Yuan had no such problems. He could use mortal methods. This allowed him to conserve immortal essence. Fang Yuan did not prepare as much immortal essence as last time. The main reason was the closing of Treasure Yellow Heaven. Cold light assaulted him. Frost formed on Fang Yuan's forehead. It spread, and he was soon covered in a layer of frost. Not just him. The entirety of Dang Hun Mountain was the same. Fang Yuan looked up, and his pupils shrunk. He mentally cried out in dismay. There were 3 more snow moons that appeared in the sky. With 3 times the cold light accumulated, the effect was multiplied. Fang Yuan's wisdom path method defending his mind stopped working. He could only use other ways to counter it. He also had to defend his body. Multiple defensive mortal killer moves were used. His body flickered with light. His body temperature was maintained at a normal level. The number of snow moons and their rate of production exceeded Fang Yuan's expectations. This ruined his plan of sitting back on Dang Hun Mountain. Fang Yuan's heart beat quickly. When he saw the 3 snow moons, he realized this was a crucial moment of life and death. The longer he dragged on, the more snow moons would appear, and the less hope he had of passing the tribulation. He had to counterattack. He could not slack on it. Otherwise, when the opportunity fades, a slight delay would cause him to get into deep despair. There would be no way for him to survive. A different goo immortal might hesitate. But Fang Yuan had rich battle experience. After realizing his situation, he used Myriad Self once again. Without hesitation, doing the same thing again, large numbers of Fang Yuan phantoms lured the wind flowers away. Fang Yuan's body was mixed in with them, charging into the sky relentlessly. After flying towards the sky, the cold light's power rose. It was no longer restricted by Dang Hun Mountain's soul path Dao marks. This was an intense battle. Fang Yuan needed to destroy the 3 snow moons, but the cold light from them gave him much greater pressure than the wind flowers. And worst of all, a 4th snow moon was already forming in the sky. Heaven's will was going through all kinds of ways to stop Fang Yuan. While he had the best opportunity to attack, large numbers of wind flowers attempted to kill Fang Yuan. 1 moon, 2 moons, 3 crescent moons. Fang Yuan destroyed them after a difficult process, and more snow moons were still forming. The cold light made Fang Yuan feel a deep chill in his mind. The cruel reality was making his limbs go numb, his chances of surviving dwindling. But Fang Yuan's expression became more firm. He charged up against the difficulty without any dejection. His immortal essence was rapidly decreasing. Every time he used an immortal killer move, he had to be careful about the expenditure and calculate it accurately. Chapter 1098. Success in Danger. Ding ding ding. A windflower hit Fang Yuan's back. Fang Yuan's defenses were like paper, torn to shreds immediately. His robe on his back was cut apart. Blood spewed as his flesh was dug out. I'm getting unlucky. Fang Yuan's heart sank. There were dozens of strength path phantoms around him, but there was only one windflower attacking them. To think that he was the one who got hit to as time passed, dog shit luck's protection would get weaker. The chances of him being found out by heaven's will increased. And worse, there was also Dark Limit Immortal Goo to take into account. Dark Limit Immortal Goo was activated, protecting Fang Yuan and concealing his aura, but it was weakening too. Once this protection vanishes, it would be more severe than losing dog shit luck's protection. Time passed. Seconds passed like years to Fang Yuan. He was holding on desperately. He had already endured countless attacks from the snow moons and wind flowers. Dogshit luck and dark limits protection weakened progressively. But familiar face, formed using attitude goo and change form goo, was a reliable method that Fang Yuan was holding on to. There was also myriad self. At this moment, its attack power was useless. He could only use it as a distraction. That Heaven's Will was not stupid. It could think. After understanding Fang Yuan's tactic, after he used myriad self each time, it could find him in a shorter time than the previous attempt. Fang Yuan's injuries were getting more severe. He had no choice but to use man as before, but this way. His immortal essence expenditure rapidly increased. He did not have much to begin with. Now, it was depleting. That Heaven's Will had the high ground controlling the earthly calamity. It was not going to lose out in this situation. While Fang Yuan was like an ant, desperately struggling to survive in this dangerous situation, the number of snow moons continued to increase. Fang Yuan was slowly unable to keep up. The situation was dire. Fang Yuan saw almost no hope. But he did not give up. He continued to grit his teeth and persevere. The winds were wild, seemingly mocking him for overestimating himself. The snow moons hung in the sky. The cold light seemed to be looking down at Fang Yuan. Seeing this, ant struggled desperately in futility. Fang Yuan was bathed in blood. His white robe had turned into a blood-red color. His blood and sweat had frozen because of the cold light. He was in a pathetic state. Some of his black hair that fluttered with the wind had snapped. The length was now uneven. He looked like a combination of a beggar and a lunatic. His face was icy cold. He did not laugh nor shout. He was like a firm piece of ice. Even if heaven and earth were burying him, he did not say a word. He endured silently in this desperate situation. The wind slowly became weaker. The power of the wind flower tribulation was fading. This was its limit, and earthly calamity's power had limits. Even if Heaven's Will amplified it to the greatest extent and personally manipulated it, Fang Yuan was not killed by the wind flowers. Soon, the number of wind flowers decreased. There was no longer any wind. Fang Yuan smiled. He activated his immortal essence, targeting the snow moons. Even though the wind flowers were gone, and the snow moons had stopped forming, there were still some wind flowers left behind, and many snow moons in the sky. A tough battle. Fang Yuan had no strength to grit his teeth. He felt extremely weak. Myriad self, strength path, giant hand, triple-layered sword wave, familiar face. He was not in a good condition. Some of his immortal killer moves failed upon activation. Each time he failed, he faced a backlash and spat out blood from his mouth. The earthly calamity was at its limits. So was Fang Yuan. There was no reason to run now. Not only could the wind flowers stop him, the snow moons could fly slowly. The range of the cold light was too large. The earthly calamity was not over yet. Heaven and earth chi was not balanced yet. It was impossible to retrieve his immortal aperture. Undeniably, Heaven's Will had planned this for some time, creating the most suitable tribulation to kill Fang Yuan. In the last earthly calamity, reckless savage true meaning was a part of the earthly calamity's strength. But this time, even though Heaven's Will could not stop it, it influenced reckless savage true meaning and turned it into the snow moon tribulation, increasing the difficulty of the entire earthly calamity. In this current situation, it depended on who could outlast the other day. An hour later, Fang Yuan collapsed on Dang Hun Mountain. His immortal essence was depleted. He could no longer sustain familiar face. His mental energy was drained. Fang Yuan exerted his effort and strength, destroying a large number of snow moons. But there was still one final moon in the sky. Using Dang Hun Mountain's protection, Fang Yuan resisted the force of the cold light. He was covered in injuries. Frost had formed on the surface of many of his injuries. Fang Yuan had no strength left. Snow and frost accumulated on his body, turning him into a piece of ice. The final trace of wind was blowing on top of the ice, carrying Heaven's Will, wanting to take Fang Yuan's life away. That he had no immortal essence left to use. Even one immortal killer move, but Fang Yuan showed the faint smile of a victor on his face. I finally survived this calamity. At the next moment, a desolate beast spine-fin star dragonfish appeared. It swung its tail and destroyed the final snow moon. beast enslavement, immortal goo. A few minutes later, heaven and earth chi settled down. Fang Yuan quickly used his methods to leave northern plains. After he left, a while later, two figures emerged from below the ice. "It's here." One of the figures inspected the place, saying this after it confirmed the surroundings. The other figure sniffed around with its nose, confirming as well. "We did not sense wrongly. Someone was undergoing tribulation here earlier. There is still some heaven and earth chi remaining. It has not completely dissipated yet." The two figures were indistinct. They were purposely concealing their figures. However, to be able to know about tribulations and to inspect them so clearly, they were surely goo immortals. Sigh. The northern icy plain was created by reckless savage demon venerable in the past single-handedly. This is an icy plain without any land. The heaven and earth chi here is less abundant than in other places. If many goo immortals undergo tribulation here, more heaven and earth chi would be consumed. At some point, the glaciers will shatter, the entire place would become unstable. One of the two mysterious goo immortals sighed as they spoke with much worry. The northern icy plain is the final paradise left for us snowmen. We live under the icy plain and do not conflict with the rest of the world. To think that the humans are not satisfied, they even want to take away this final sanctuary of ours. The other mysterious figure was younger and said with much anger that it turned out that these two goo immortals were not simple. They were snowman goo immortals of the variant humans. The young snowman goo immortal continued. "First Supreme Elder is too behind the times. In my opinion, we should have gotten rid of that Chu-Du look. Not only is Chu-Du coming to undergo tribulations, others are coming too. Soon, more and more goo immortals will come and destroy our sanctuary." The older snowman goo immortal sighed. "Sigh. I understand why First Supreme Elder agreed. They are worried that a battle with Chu-Du would expose our location to the world. Right now, humans are the overlords of the world. Their status is firm as a mountain, unshakable. If we are exposed, all the goo immortals in northern plains would come after us. Do we let this continue? Let more and more goo immortals undergo tribulations on top of us? With our strength, if we fight in this icy plain, as long as we plan well, it is not hard to kill some human goo immortals. Of course, I admit that Chu-Du is very strong. We can play it safe and avoid him, but other goo immortals are not hard to kill. If they all die, who will know we are the culprits? Humans are a chaotic bunch internally. The righteous path and demonic path have never stopped their conflicts." The young goo immortal said. "Sigh, you make sense too. Let's report this matter to the tribe and see what the other supreme elders have to say." The two snowman goo immortals discussed as their vague figures vanished. Even though Fang Yuan was covered in wounds, he moved unceasingly, rushing back to Langya blessed land. "Heavens will wants to exterminate me. The best chance is during my tribulations. Not only can it increase the might of the calamities and tribulations to their limits, it can manipulate them personally. And worse, it can influence other people and create a human tribulation to kill me." Fang Yuan remembered this detail clearly. This was precious information that he had obtained from transactions with Sixth Hair in the Battle of Etion Mountain months ago. He was also part of the crucial human tribulation that heavens will use to deal with spectral soul, because he had experienced it personally. Fang Yuan was very much on alert regarding these human tribulations. Look at who spectral soul was, and he had Shadow Sect and Zombie Alliance to assist him for 100,000 years. He still lost to heaven's will in the end. Compared to them, what was Fang Yuan? Thus, Fang Yuan disregarded his severe injuries. He immediately left. He was fast, not giving heaven's will any time to plan. There were no unexpected mishaps along the way. Fang Yuan successfully returned to Langya blessed land. After he got to Langya blessed land, he let out a sigh, knowing that he was safe for now. Next, Fang Yuan hid inside his cloud city and healed his injuries. While returning all the immortal goo he borrowed, a few days later, Fang Yuan's injuries healed. He was in prime condition again. He started restoring Danghun Mountain, which was in his immortal aperture. Speaking of which, this mountain was a huge help when he was undergoing tribulation. Danghun Mountain was in a terrible condition. It was a huge mountain earlier, but after getting attacked by countless wind flowers, there was only a tiny mound left. Landscape as before. Using this immortal goo, Dang Hun Mountain regained its former size. Only when Dang Hun Mountain was in this state could it produce guts goo at the highest efficiency. Fang Yuan did not dare to be careless. He quickly took out Dang Hun Mountain and handed it over to Lang Ye Blessed Land. However, even though he could mass-produce guts goo, the place to sell them, Treasure Yellow Heaven, was still closed. Right now, Lang Ye's sects inventory had a huge amount of guts goo that could not be sold. Fang Yuan was anxious. 2 months later, the third earthly calamity will arrive. It will be stronger than now. If I do not obtain a breakthrough in any aspect during this period of time and gain more strength, I will likely die. But gaining strength does not come out of nowhere. I need all sorts of cultivation resources. Treasure Yellow Heaven. When is it going to open? Chapter 1099, Transformation Path, Grandmaster. Inside the Sovereign Immortal Aperture, Mini Eastern Sea. This was a place with an aquatic terrain, but it was not as vast as the Eastern Sea in the outside world. The deepest sea level was only 60 feet. Most of the places were like mud pits to desolate beasts. This was because the Sovereign Immortal Aperture did not have enough water path down marks yet. Right now, in a particular location of Mini Eastern Sea, 2 desolate beasts were fighting. Howl. The desolate beast shark fin wolf howled as it pounced. It opened its mouth, showing its fangs. If its attack landed, even mountains could be damaged. But its opponent was a desolate beast flying bear. A crafty light shone in its eyes as it retreated. The shark fin wolf exerted excessive strength. Its attack was easily dodged by the flying bear. Next, the flying bear raised its paws and slammed down at the shark fin wolf's head. Bam! A huge force threw the shark fin wolf onto the ground. It went into a daze from the impact. It could not get up. However, Fang Yuan was not satisfied with this result. When I used Flying Bear Strength Immortal Goo earlier, my strength increased. But the Flying Bear transformation had an issue. I am temporarily using this Strength Path Immortal Zombie Body. It has a lot of Strength Path down marks on it. Even though I have changed form Immortal Goo, I can only change my appearance with difficulty. The Strength Path down marks are resisting the effects of change form Immortal Goo. Transformation Path Goo Immortals mainly had Transformation Path down marks in their bodies. These down marks could transform into down marks of other paths under the influence of goo worms. Change form Immortal Goo was the essence of Transformation Path. With it, the Goo Immortal could transform into anything. Flowers, birds, fish, insects, grass, trees, mountains, rivers, suns, stars, moons, they could become anything. But this goo only changes the form. Other goo worms had to be used to change the strength, speed, defense, and other aspects. Right now, the Sovereign Immortal Aperture is inside my body. I can only use the Strength Path Immortal Zombies and train my Transformation Path methods. But Strength Path Immortal Zombies have Strength Path down marks. It is hard for them to use Change Form Immortal Goo. But Flying Bear Strength Goo gains an amplification from Strength Path down marks. It has a greater effect. Fang Yuan assessed this, realizing the usefulness of his current body, non-interference and conflict between his down marks. This was an immense advantage. Between all paths, they had clear boundaries that separated them. Even if one cultivated more than one path, there was a difference between the primary and secondary path. But for Fang Yuan, the boundaries were indistinct. He could cultivate all paths. It seems that using Strength Path Immortal Zombies can only train my Transformation Path methods to some extent. It cannot let me understand the true extent of my abilities. Fang Yuan sighed, controlling the flying bear, dodging agilely. As it turned out, the desolate beast shark fin wolf had gotten up. It attacked in a frenzied state. But Fang Yuan had the intelligence of a human. He utilized battle tactics and manipulated the flying bear fluidly. The shark fin wolf could not even injure the flying bear. Even though Fang Yuan had beast enslavement Immortal Goo and controlled this desolate beast before, after the earthly calamity, Fang Yuan had to return beast enslavement Immortal Goo. Thus, before this, he had released his control over the shark fin wolf and spine fin star dragonfish. This had a benefit. Without beast enslavement Immortal Goo, the desolate beast shark fin wolf could unleash its true fierce nature. It was a good sparring partner. Bam! With another loud sound, the shark fin wolf was slammed into the mud pit by the flying bear's paws once again, as mud splashed all over. This time, the The shark fin wolf whimpered. It got up quickly, seeing that the flying bear was unharmed. It quickly escaped timidly. Fang Yuan, who was anticipating the shark fin wolf's attack, was dazed, he thought. Was it because I was too harsh when flicking it to subdue it in the past? Its ferocity is greatly reduced as a result. The shark fin wolf escaped. Fang Yuan lost all interest in continuing. But my practice these last days was not in vain. It proved that my transformation path attainment level has indeed reached Grandmaster level. Transformation path Grandmaster. Right now, Fang Yuan was a Grandmaster in Blood Path, Strength Path, Wisdom Path, and Star Path. A fifth path, Transformation Path, had also become Grandmaster level. The 500 years of his previous life were not of much help to Fang Yuan here. His transformation path attainment could reach this level because of Reckless Savage's true meaning that Heavens will wanted to exterminate Fang Yuan. It planned and raised the power of his calamities and tribulations to the limits permitted by the way of heaven. Fang Yuan had passed 2 earthly calamities, but these earthly calamities were extraordinarily powerful. They were on par with heavenly tribulations. Thus, even Reckless Savage's true meaning was drawn out in a greater amount. Good fortune and misfortune came in turns. Calamities and tribulations had a rule. That was the balance of fortune and misfortune. The stronger the calamities and tribulations, the greater the danger Fang Yuan faced. But after passing the tribulation, he would receive much greater benefits. Fang Yuan's transformation path Grandmaster attainment was obtained after 3 infusions of Reckless Savage's true meaning. The first was when He Lu Lan ascended to a 10 extreme immortal. The latter 2 times were inside his own earthly calamities, drawn out using immortal tribulation tempering aperture. He could become a Grandmaster because his foundation had been accumulated sufficiently. Becoming a transformation path Grandmaster is good news, but my current situation is quite bad. Fang Yuan was worried. Calamities and tribulations grew stronger each time. After the second earthly calamity, Fang Yuan could guess how much stronger his following calamities and tribulations would become. The second earthly calamity was passed after an extremely dangerous process. Along the way, the snow moons started appearing. If Fang Yuan was not resolute and attacked them immediately, the outcome would be disastrous. Towards the end, Dang Hun Mountain was reduced to a small mound. He had so little immortal essence he could not even use one immortal killer move. He only passed because of the desolate beast he prepared that it could be said. Fang Yuan expended almost all of his trump cards. During the first earthly calamity, Reckless Savage's true meaning took over half of the calamities and tribulations power. The snow monsters created by Heavens will did not hold the initiative. But during the second earthly calamity, Heavens will planned and plotted while involving Reckless Savage's true meaning, making use of it, influencing it to become the snow moons that amplified the power of the wind flower tribulation. Heavens will can think, in the third earthly calamity, it will definitely consider Dang Hun Mountain, my current immortal killer moves, and my desolate beasts, as well as even subordinates like Gu Immortal Zhou. Know yourself and your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Fang Yuan had gone through some tribulations. He gained a deeper understanding towards Heaven's will. Conversely, the same applied to Heaven's will. It gained more and more information regarding Fang Yuan. Currently, Fang Yuan had 7 main methods against the tribulations. The first was to undergo tribulation in the northern icy plain, using immortal tribulation tempering aperture to lure out Reckless Savage, true meaning, weakening Heaven's will's control over the tribulations. The second was dogshit luck, using luck path to weaken the tribulations. The third was using attitude Gu, dark limit Gu, change form Gu, and familiar face to transform into various things that could confuse Heaven's will. The fourth was his strength path, sword path, and blood path immortal Gu, as well as immortal killer moves that could resist it head-on. The fifth was Dang Hun Mountain. It gave him an advantage in terrain. The sixth was his status as a complete otherworldly demon. Heaven's will could not influence Fang Yuan's cognition. The seventh were external forces, like the spine fin star dragonfish, shark fin wolf, feather mangu immortal Zhou, Langya sects hairy mangu immortals, and others. Heaven's will knows clearly about these methods and trump cards. At most, the seventh point has greater room for variance. But these external forces are unreliable. My enslavement path attainment level is not high. I am not skilled in enslavement path methods either. Even though I can enslave the shark fin wolf and spine fin star dragonfish, heavens will can also use the tribulations to grant them freedom. Thus, during the tribulation, I can only set them up as a trump card to prevent heaven's will from making use of them. And the Featherman Gu Immortal Zhou Zhong. He is a variant human Gu Immortal. He has abundant intelligence. If he regains freedom, he would be a bigger threat than desolate beasts. Unless I have no choice, I will not expose the secret of my sovereign immortal aperture to him. And most importantly, he had once used heavenly wish to descend into Tai by blessed land as an earthly calamity. If he was manipulated by heaven's will like those snow monsters and betrayed me, that would be problematic. At this rate, my third earthly calamity will be a near-death experience, and the fourth earthly calamity would be a certain death situation. Fang Yuan was deeply aware of his circumstances. Even though he passed the second earthly calamity, Treasure Yellow Heaven was not open. He could not use any cultivation resources to increase his strength. This was the problem with Gu Immortals undergoing tribulation. The calamities and tribulations get stronger each time. They had to work hard and cultivate to ensure that the growth of their strength could match the increase in strength of the calamities and tribulations. Gu Immortals with lower potential would face weaker calamities and tribulations. There was a long time between each one. It was not hard for them to cultivate. But Fang Yuan's potential was unprecedented and possibly never surpassed. He had the sovereign immortal aperture that could cultivate all paths. Thus, his calamities and tribulations were so terrifying. The growth in their strength was unheard of, and there was only 2 months between each tribulation. Other Gu Immortals would have died already, because Fang Yuan had a deep foundation and a huge amount of resources saved up. He could last until now. Look at the number of immortal Gu and immortal killer moves Fang Yuan had. His Grandmaster attainment level and multiple paths, and even Dang Hun Mountain and Langya sect. These external forces that he could use. But even so, his future was bleak. Treasure Yellow Heaven is closed. It completely breaks my plans and momentum. At this rate, I cannot survive. The problem was Treasure Yellow Heaven. If Treasure Yellow Heaven opened, he would have a smooth journey ahead. But when was Treasure Yellow Heaven opening? Nobody knew it could open in the next moment, or several months later. In Fang Yuan's case, if it took a few months to reopen, he would be dead already. Unless he had a fortuitous encounter and gained a huge boost in strength. Days passed, but there were no signs of Treasure Yellow Heaven opening. Fang Yuan's injuries had recovered, but his immortal aperture could not develop. Langya sect's development was also halted. Langya Land Spirit had asked Fang Yuan many times to settle the matter of the falling star hound. But Fang Yuan did not agree. Their relationship was getting worse. Langya Land Spirit reduced the rewards of Fang Yuan teaching the hairy man Gu Immortal's combat skills to the lowest. He was making almost no gains. Under Sixth Hair's instigation, the other hairy man Gu Immortals were also turning cold to Fang Yuan. They even started hating him. Even though the second earthly calamity was over, Fang Yuan's situation was getting worse. Should he wait until Treasure Yellow Heaven opened, or attempt to take the initiative and find a breakthrough? Fang Yuan was faced with a difficult problem. Chapter 1100. Hey Tribe takes the blame. Fang Yuan thought about it for a long time. He chose to wait. After the second earthly calamity, he gained a deeper understanding of heaven's will. Over at Tai Chiu, it seems peaceful, but heaven's will has likely already made its plot, waiting for me to jump in. Earlier, Langya sect was developing smoothly in Tai Chiu. It was likely heaven's will's bait. Next, the falling star hound appeared. It was heaven's will's probing and pressure. It is attempting to use Langya sect to force me out. This means I definitely cannot go. Or maybe Fang Yuan was just overthinking it. Maybe heaven's will was not so omnipotent. Or maybe heaven's will has not started plotting in Tai Chiu yet. Fang Yuan thought about these, but he eliminated all these wishful thoughts. He could survive until now because of his vigilance and the fact that he did not leave things to chance. He always planned for the worst outcome, placing no expectations on the love of others, not longing for anyone to be kind to him, not expecting himself to be favored by fate, relying entirely on himself. Waiting, Fang Yuan settled down. awaiting the opening of treasure yellow heaven. After considering all aspects, this was the most advantageous and stable choice for him. Time continued to pass. Half a month soon passed, but treasure yellow heaven still had no change. Sixth Hair was sowing discord. Everywhere, the hairy Mangu immortal's attitude towards Fang Yuan was getting worse. Some were pointing at Fang Yuan in the face, scolding him for being a traitor. Even though he joined Langya's sect, he was not contributing it. I have a reason for everything I do, Fang Yuan explained plainly. After that, he stayed in his cloud city and rarely moved around. He also accepted very few requests to guide the hairy Mangu immortals in fighting, because the rewards were simply too little after Langya land spirit's adjustment. He could not develop his immortal aperture, and it was difficult to become proficient in transformation path methods. Fang Yuan did not waste his time. He used wisdom path methods to make many deductions, but without the light of wisdom, Fang Yuan felt a strong contrast. His deductions took a long time. It was very different from using the light of wisdom. The difference was like that of heaven and earth. Why would I care about the attitude of others? As long as I am in Langya's sect and do not break any sect rules, would Langya land spirit break his own rules and remove my external supreme elder status? Unlikely. Fang Yuan continued to wait. Even though the environment exerted great pressure on him, he was unmoved. Northern Plains, Myriad Bean Garden, more than 10 days later. This place had fertile soil and good sunny weather. There were fields for farming with lots of irrigation channels that were orderly arranged. Chu Du came here and looked around. He felt his emotions calming down. He said loudly, Tian Xiaoxe, you are indeed the #1 wisdom path Gu immortal in Northern Plains. The outside world is already in a mess, but you are still here farming and living peacefully. You are truly an unfettered expert. There were thousands of square kilometers of farmland, with many figures that had their backs lowered in farming. Most of them were ink men. They had dark skin and white hair. They were a type of variant human. One of them was a human. He looked like an old farmer with a hunched back, 50 to 60 years old with wrinkles on his face. His rough hands were grabbing onto 2 special beanstalks. His pants were rolled up as he stood on mud. He had no demeanor of an immortal. He really looked like an ordinary old man. But after hearing Chu Du's words, he raised his head, straightening his back. Facing the famous domination immortal, he had no fear or unease. He smiled lightly. Chu Du, you are flattering me. How can I be the #1 wisdom path Gu immortal in Northern Plains? There is a mountain taller than another mountain, an expert above another expert. There are so many hidden experts in Northern Plains. Even though I inherited old immortal Tian Yuan's true inheritance, I could not learn much and had a weak foundation. Back in the day, I competed with Dong Fang Chong Fan and lost to him by miles. There is no way I am #1. This wisdom path Gu immortal Tian Xia Xian was originally immortal. He was not even a Gu master, but under a coincidence, he obtained an immense opportunity from an immortal. Eventually, he inherited the true inheritance of a famous person in history, the wisdom path great expert old immortal Tian Yuan, becoming a wisdom path Gu immortal secretly. Back then, when Dong Fang Chong Fan tried to develop his clan and lead Dong Fang tribe on a strong rise, he had to infringe on other people's benefits. Even though Tian Xia Xian obtained a true inheritance and became a Gu immortal, he had ordinary aptitude. His immortal aperture was ordinary and his calamities and tribulations were not powerful. Because of his personality, he had no grand ambitions. He was originally cultivating peacefully at home, but when Dong Fang tribe expanded, they interrupted his peaceful lifestyle. Even though Tian Xia Xian was unwilling to, Dong Fang Chong Fan was very overbearing. After losing to Dong Fang Chong Fan, he could only leave Myriad Bean Garden and roam outside. During this period, he interacted with other Gu immortals, and slowly, the Northern Plains Gu immortal world learned of his existence. After Dong Fang Chong Fan died, Dong Fang tribe's base was taken down. Countless resources were snatched away. A super force. Dong Fang tribe was like the setting sun, fading out of existence rapidly. Without Dong Fang Chong Fan, Dong Fang tribe collapsed. Tian Xia Xian used this chance to return to his former home, becoming the owner of Myriad Bean Garden. Even though he had ordinary aptitude, his true inheritance was very impressive. Many Northern Plains Gu immortal promoted him, considering him to be the #1 person under Dong Fangchang. Fan. After Dong Fangchang Fan died, he naturally went up in status, and was now publicly recognized as the #1 wisdom path Gu immortal in the Northern Plains Gu immortal world. But he had no ambitions or desires. He wanted to be ordinary. Even as a Gu immortal, he did not want to give up on his original life. He went to the fields to farm daily. Of course, Myriad Bean Garden was huge. Most of the labor was done by Inkmen. Tian Xia Xin raised Inkman slaves. He was quite famous in the Northern Plains Gu immortal world for this. Chu Du smiled, walking towards Tian Xia Xin. Brother Tian is too humble. If I had Brother Tian's wisdom path attainment, I would call myself #1 already. In the whole of Northern Plains, I would like to see who can compete against me. Tian Xia Xin squinted his eyes. He laughed heartily. Brother Chu, you carry yourself like a dragon or tiger. You are a domineering person among immortals. You have grand ambitions. I cannot compare to you. Well, do you also want to reap some benefits from He Tribe? You came here today to ask me to make deductions for you. Chu Du nodded, but shook his head a moment later. He Tribe is about to be destroyed, like the former Dongfang tribe. Right now, almost all forces in Northern Plains Gu immortal world are attacking and plotting against He Tribe. However, I do not want to interfere in this. I came here with an even more important matter to ask Brother Tian to deduce. Tian Xia Xin showed a look of admiration on his face. Impressive. As expected of domination immortal Chu Du, you are unfazed by the trends of the world and stick to your own goals. What do you want me to deduce? I want you to make deductions about a person. This is the clue, Chu Du said, handing an immortal Gu to Tian Xia Xin. This immortal Gu looked like a silver-winged dragonfly. Its wings were flickering with silver light. Tian Xia Xin felt a cold chill looking at it. A rank 7 sword path, immortal Gu. He was slightly taken aback. Suddenly, his body shook with a mystical aura. He answered himself. Flying sword immortal Gu. Bo Qing once used it. As expected of Tian Xia Xin, that is the case. Chu Du praised, stating his intent that he wanted to obtain the immortal tribulation tempering aperture method from Fang Yuan, to lure out infusions of reckless savage's true meaning, assisting him in cultivation. Compared to the immortal tribulation tempering aperture method, his method of nurturing strength path Gu masters to become Gu immortals was too slow and inefficient. Even though he had Fang Yuan's flying sword immortal Gu, he could not match him in speed. He could only negotiate with him. But after that, Fang Yuan left. Even though he gave Chu Du a contact method, Chu Du received few replies from him. Even when Fang Yuan replied, he was just giving half-hearted replies. Chu Du was getting more anxious, especially in the last few months. When Treasure Yellow Heaven closed, Chu Du lost all ways to contact Fang Yuan. Chu Du was also anticipating the opening of Treasure Yellow Heaven, but when he thought about it, even if Treasure Yellow Heaven opened, Fang Yuan might still ignore him. It was quite unbelievable. What sort of person was Chu Du? He actually had to wait for a Gu immortal to reply to him. But the immortal tribulation tempering aperture method was very important. It was a way for Chu Du to cultivate. Chu Du ignored even the events in He Tribe. He went to Tian Xia Xin to use his methods to deduce Fang Yuan's location. Since you are ignoring me, I will find you myself. Chu Du was thinking like this. This was the demeanor of the domination immortal. Tian Xia Xin continued deducing. A moment later, he said, Good. This immortal Gu still belongs to the target. You did not forcefully refine it. This way, I have a 50% chance of deducing the other party. Chu Du frowned. Only 50%. If he is hiding inside an immortal aperture, I definitely cannot deduce anything. 50% is very high already. Tian Xia Xin said. Chu Du nodded helplessly. Then I will trouble Brother Tian. Let's go to another location. I need 3 days. Langya blessed land. Fang Yuan returned to his cloud city. Earlier, he was summoned by Langya land spirit. He was not asking him to deal with the falling star hound. Instead, something huge was happening in Northern Plains. He Tribe. Fang Yuan muttered, his gaze flickering. He Tribe was facing a destructive crisis. They were in dire straits. Speaking of which, Fang Yuan was among the main culprits for it. Looking at the situation, Fang Yuan caused the collapse of 88 True Yang building. He destroyed imperial court blessed land and caused Northern Plains' righteous path to be furious. They were trying to find him. But at that time, with Shadow Sect helping him, along with Fang Yuan's own efforts, they could not find him. Next, He Chung joined Shadow Sect. Shadow Sect and Feng Jiuji's group fought in the 100 Days battle in Luo Pa Valley. He Chung left behind the immortal Gu House dark prison and escaped, being captured by Fang Yuan. Next, Blazing Heaven Demonists dealt with old ancestor Shuehu. They came to an agreement. Blazing Heaven Demonists forced He Tribe's top 4 supreme elders, who were using Green City Rampage, to retreat. An old ancestor Shuehu used the chance to steal immortal materials from He Tribe's headquarters, earning a huge fortune. Finally, in the Battle of Etian Mountain, Shadow Sect was destroyed. Nobody could protect Fang Yuan from deductions anymore. His secret was exposed by Heavenly Court to the entire world. The truth of Imperial Court blessed land was revealed. Northern Plains Gu immortals wanted to get rid of Fang Yuan, but they could not find his location. Firstly, Wisdom Path Gu immortals were very rare, and secondly, Fang Yuan had been hiding inside Langya blessed land the entire time. Finally, this fellow also had quite a high attainment in Wisdom Path himself. Northern Plains Gu immortals could not find He Lu Lan or Tai by Yunsheng. Fang Yuan was the main culprit. They were the accomplices. Right now, they were with Ing Wuxia. Central Continent's Heavenly Court struck, but could not capture them. Northern Plains Gu immortals were furious, especially the Righteous Path Gu immortals, and those super forces who dominated territories, the Huang Jin tribes. Their lives was originally great. Using the arrangement of their ancestor giant son, Immortal Venerable, they could bully those demonic path or lone immortals, playing the game of the Imperial Court contest every 10 years. It was quite exciting. In all, the Righteous Path flourished, and the Huang Jin tribes dominated Northern Plains. The situation could not be shaken. But Imperial Court blessed land was destroyed. 88 True Yang building collapsed. This beautiful setup broke apart utterly. They could not find the culprit or the accomplices, so they went to He Tribe. He Lu Lan was a member of He Tribe after all. Who else but He Tribe could take the blame now?